turn it over to our friends in ITS. I want to welcome everybody. I know it's been a few months since we've met as a team. We actually opened this up this time to all of our opportunity administrators. I know we've had a steady, probably 25 or 30 of you guys that have been regularly attending these meetings, but we thought we had some really good information to share with you guys at this meeting. So we wanted to open it up and allow our administrators across campus to attend if they were interested, since it is a virtual meeting. So I know before I turn it over to Charlotte, one of the things that we have talked with you guys about a lot over time is student outreach. How do we get word to students about the opportunities that we have? I know some of you use various social media platforms. You might advertise in your departments. You might have listservs. You might use Twitter or various websites that you guys manage and handle in your various campus units. But in talking with ITS, there are other resources that are available to you guys, ways to reach out to students that maybe meet certain, they have certain elements on their student record, and so it identifies them instead of maybe your entire group or pool of students. So in talking with Charlotte and her team, there are ways that they can assist you guys in advertising scholarships, getting word out to students or various student groups in regards to what opportunities you have when those are available. So without going further, I'm going to turn it over to Charlotte. We've got her and her team here from ITS, and they're going to talk to you about some of the opportunities or some of the resources that you guys have available through her team that can help you if you're struggling in finding applicants or ways to advertise and get word out to your students. So with that, I'll turn it over to Charlotte.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for inviting us. We're happy to be here and share some information, just some tools that we already have that are existing that we can leverage to help get this message across, and think about other tools or something else that we might be able to do later down the road. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, I believe Brady has it set up so that you can share. Or actually, you know what? If it's not, I just made it so that you can. So give it just a second.
Can you see it?
I don't see it. Oh, there we go. Yep.
So you probably can only see the little one, but that's okay. Is it too small?
It's fine to me.
Yeah, that looks good, Charlotte.
Okay. So I invited several folks from ITS to be here with us. Myself, Charlotte Supran Garcia, and I work as a relationship manager for the Division of Student Affairs. And I work closely with ITS on a lot of these special types of projects. I invited Andrew Hanlon, and he is the administrator for both the My FSU portal and the My FSU mobile application. And Gerardo Garcia as well. He oversees the portal and the mobile app, but a few other custom applications teams that work with him and developers. And then I also invited Andy Busier to this meeting. He's been working closely with me as our senior developer on the COVID technology response team, and always has some pretty great ideas. I wanted him to be included in this meeting in case you can think of something else that we might be able to do later down the road. Just right off the bat, things that we already have that are existing that we can leverage to communicate to students is the My FSU portal. We have been very successful, as an example, with registration and our registration readiness banner, where students can, at the time that they go to register, they can see where they are in the process, and if there's anything missing that needs to be turned in, such as a hold or something that needs to be cleared, they can very easily see it on that very front page of their My FSU portal, so they know where they stand in every step of the way. We also, I was thinking we could do something in the My Finances portlet, like maybe add a tab that's for scholarships. And I'm going to show you all screenshots of all of these. And then we also have the ability to do some post-it notes, just set up some reminders there for students. Then the mobile application, we can do messages. We can do push notifications to students. We can do little banners there too. And we can add a little section that talks about scholarships as well in the mobile application. And then we were also thinking about the weekly announcements digest that goes out to all students. There's one that's for students and one that's for faculty and staff. So we can send out these weekly announcements. You can set it up to go out up to 3 weeks, the same message. And then you can add graphics, you can add information, you can add links, different URLs where you want the students to learn. So we've seen a lot of success with that tool as well. So I'm gonna dive into these screenshots, and Andy Hanlon, I saw him in this meeting, so he may need to step in and help me chat through this, Marianne. So if you can let him unmute himself too, that would be awesome. Thank you. So this right here is an example of the readiness portlet. And you'll see it's this very top part right here. This one is reminding you that you have not completed your 2FA registration. So this will show up, will be in your face. It's sort of disruptive, right? So you see that you're almost there, and this line will fill in with the gold as you continue the steps to complete it. Andy, am I missing anything? You can't unmute.
Brady, do we have him locked down? Can you or Stacy unmute him, please? And I would probably unmute all the ITS team, Gerardo as well as Matt, just in case.
So yeah, so somebody unmuted me, and then while you were still talking, I muted myself back just in case, and then apparently I couldn't unmute myself again. So I apologize. I'll stay unmuted and just try to stay quiet. But no, I think you've got it covered there. I mean, basically, the way that we've set those banners up and similar type of banners is if there's something in the system that we can leverage because it's authenticated, so we know who the users are. So if there's something in the system there that we can leverage, we can use that to indicate status and progress along the way. So yeah, there's a few different ways we could do that. But
right, and what he means by that, we know who the person is who's logged in. So if we, let's say, if we get a list of folks that are eligible or maybe eligible, or we want to encourage to apply for a certain scholarship, we can have this show up just for them, and we can get pretty disruptive in how we set it up in the portal so that they're able to see it fairly quickly. And this is another example of a banner that we did recently that it catches your attention because it looks so different from anything else on the page. So we did a little banner, welcome President McCullough, and I believe it had a little bit of animation to it too. So we're able to do that as well. Here is an example right here where the My Finances portlet is. We were thinking that we might be able to do either a portlet that says scholarships and do some separate tabs in there. We can pick up, and correct me if I'm wrong, RSS feeds. So if we want to display somebody's information from their website, we can display that on here as well. And then we can have some information that's specific to the scholarships. We can always add a tab to the My Finances that says, scholarships. But we have the ability to do that as well. And like Andy mentioned earlier, since we know who you are, we can actually push information that's specific to you as a user. Andy, am I missing anything from these?
I was just going to point out just another, we have a pretty flexible tool. So there's different types of content we could do, but just in terms of getting messaging on the right side of the screen there, there's a little welcome FSU area. That's again, just something custom that we were able to put together with a message and an image and a link. So, and then you can see above that, the sticky note type thing that we can do as well. And then on the left side there, there's a Seminole Dining, which is just an image that's a link again. So just pointing those out, there's the various types of content and formats that we can do to get the messaging out in different ways.
Thank you, Andy.
And again, all those sections, we have the ability to hide and show, each of those little sections, depending on, if we have a list of users or a way to identify even those little individual sections, we can do the same thing with that.
And here's another example. This is the actual registration readiness portlet. On the very top, where you see that this person's going through registration. If they had a hold, it would have told them they had a hold. They would have been able to click on it and resolve it. So this one, I think you all gathered some stats on how successful this was the very first time that we rolled it out, right, Andy?
Yeah, I don't know what those numbers are off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, we're able to track if we have the links and we can track views and how many times they've actually clicked on the links. And so we can see that we saw a huge spike, in terms of, the response that we had from users actually, or students actually taking an action on their holds leading up to registration, which was the primary issue that we're trying to address. That instead of waiting until registration and then discovering they had an issue, this was kind of getting out in front of it and letting them know their process or their status ahead of time. So yeah, this is really successful. We've done it, I don't know, we're probably going on 2 or 3 years, maybe more than that now, because it's been so successful. So
this is another example. This one actually links you out to the foundation, and this is the student foundation. So this one we do every semester, right, Andy? We're at the beginning of during registration or right after. I don't remember. We have a set calendar where we display this one for anybody to donate to the student foundation. If you remember, this was what used to be the Garnet and Gold donation at the end of registration. So when we went live with a new campus solution system, we had to make some adjustments. And so then we ended up putting this banner together for the student foundation. We got special permission to do this from Cabinet. And then just to give you an idea of the mobile application, we can always add a section here for scholarships. And this is an example of the messages that we can do with the mobile application. So a lot of students don't read their emails necessarily. They have their phones in hand constantly. So we are able to push this information out to the mobile app. And then I just did a quick little slide with just our email addresses. And if you would like to do anything with the portal, if you're interested, if you think it'll help, this is the email address to that team.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think I'd like to open it up and see if any of our administrators have any questions specifically for you. I know I've talked to the administrators previously. The foundation itself, our FS4U team, who assist all of you in awarding your or not awarding, but in administering your scholarships and getting everything through the system. We're not really using this portal because you guys are really on your own schedule. Some of you are advertising with your scholarships. Some of you have certain open and closed periods that you're advertising. We do typically do a post-it, which you can see up there in the upper right-hand corner that Charlotte and Andy talked about. We do a post-it we have the ITS team post that when once we go through cycle management and the new application is available for, the new general application is available for students to go out and fill out for the next award cycle. So we do that from our end. But outside of that, we're not reaching out to student groups or advertising scholarships, other than the fact that you guys establish open and closed periods within the system that really drives on the public website when those are open and accepting applications. So having said that, this is we knew these tools were available, but I think sometimes we have turnover in the departments and maybe not everybody knows what all is available to them. So I want to open it up in case any of our administrators have questions, perhaps didn't know this information was available. I mean, they can really take things a step further and hit, not just student groups in total, but students group just in business or just in the accounting department or just, they can really target different profiles based on a student's record. So having said that, if anybody has questions for Charlotte and her team, please feel free to jump in now and ask them. Brady, do they have the ability to unmute themselves and do that? Okay.
Yes, they do. You can also type it in the chat if you feel like doing that. And we'll give it just a minute.
These resources were available and that's great, but hopefully, if not, Charlotte, you and your team will hear from a few of them moving forward. Okay, so we do have one question. Is it correct that departments can request to place an ad for majors, for example?
Yep.
Yes.
And we have another one from Arts and Sciences. How much lead time is needed?
So generally, I mean, I'd probably say, like a 2-week lead time. Well, depending on availability of the space and exactly what, the type of communication that needs to go out. So, so I would just say, and generally reach out if you're thinking about something, reach out ahead of time. As soon as you're thinking about it, we can have the discussions. We can kind of put a placeholder on the calendar while we finalize the actual messaging is typically how we do it. But at least so we have an idea of if you need us to help put the messaging or the content together, or so it just kind of depends on what it is you're trying to do. If it's like, hey, we've got a graphic and we'd like to put it in the little rotating banner section, that stuff is pretty straightforward. But yeah, generally, a few weeks lead time in order to get something put together and test it and get it in front of you. But yeah, the sooner the better we can get something on the calendar, make sure that the space is open for you.
Yeah, I think posting a message that will go out to all the users is very easy, very simple. We can do that, in a very short amount of time. If you're trying to target specific populations, then we'll need to make sure that we actually have access to that data, right? So if it is by department, if it's by class enrollment, if it's by other criteria, then we'll have to make sure that we do have access, that the portal can see that data, and then we can target it. So if it's targeted audiences, we'll probably need a more lead time. And what Andy said, you would just need to make sure that there's availability of the space around the time. So, but pushing it out to all the users is very simple to do.
Andy, I worked with you when we did our post-it for the general application that we've done in the past. And one of the things that I remember is that depending on the type of message they choose, there are different lengths of time that those can run for, right? So like a banner can run for different length of time, maybe than a post-it versus some different messaging that they choose to do. So that's why I think it's good that you guys get with the ITS team about what you're ultimately trying to accomplish. And then they can work with you to ensure that, you're not choosing messaging that's not maybe going to accomplish it because it's not going to be there long enough to do so.
Yeah, and the sooner the better. The sooner, and if you're just brainstorming or thinking about it, or just engage with us. And if you want us to go, get together, have a quick meeting, chat about it, just let us know. We're available.
Great. Well, I don't see any more questions. So, did somebody chime in? Well, Charlotte, I want to thank you and Andy and Gerardo for taking time out to be a part of our group today. This group meets quarterly and we try to stay up to speed on everything that we can with regards to the system. So I appreciate you guys bringing these resources and awareness to the team. Hopefully, you will hear from a few of them and we can try to improve student outreach and meeting some of the students moving forward. But regardless, I do appreciate your time, and you guys can feel free to jump off if you want. Brady's going to go into some other things, but don't feel like you have to stick around for the remainder of the meeting if you don't want to.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Brady, do you have the agenda that you want to bring up that we'll just work through now for those that choose to stay on?
Yeah, give me just a second.
And I will say for those of you, we have a pretty good group today. I can see we've got 3 pages, which is more than we've had in the past. For those of you who maybe this is the first meeting of this kind that you are attending, we started these, I'll just give you a little bit of historical content. We started these once we implemented FS4U a few years ago. It was actually a request that came from UBA. And so it was really started at their request for a lot of their users who were just getting familiar with the system and had some questions. And so at that time, we started these meetings bi-monthly, and it was really a way for them to bring their questions and for us to address those in a pretty timely manner. And then over time, as people have gotten more familiar with the system, we just adopted them more to quarterly, but it's still an opportunity for us to apprise the group of updates that are occurring within the system, as well as to just make ourselves available at a time that's scheduled for everybody to kind of have a Q&A session. If anybody's having questions, a lot of times it's good, even if you don't have a question, to just listen to some of the other questions that are being raised, because it may in turn prompt something that you guys are thinking about in your various departments or colleges. So we do have these quarterly. Brady will be scheduling the next one following this meeting. So if you guys, obviously he's got anybody who's been a part of today, he'll be sure to include you moving forward. We are including these communications as part of our listserv announcement. But if you do know of someone in your areas that you think this type of information would be helpful for, feel free to share that information with Brady so that we can make sure that we include them in future announcements with regards to these meetings. And with that, Brady, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Ann. Again, thank you, Charlotte, Andrew, and Gerardo for joining us this morning. So we're mostly talking about cycle management today. I'll kick it off by just telling anybody that hadn't been a part of this for very long, what is cycle management? It's the process where we officially close our current cycle and start a new one. This process includes archiving our general and conditional applications, which will allow for fresh applications to be received for the new scholarship cycle. And I'll share that timeline in just a moment. We emailed it out previously, but did want to make everybody aware of it if you haven't seen it. There are 2 required components for cycle management. The general and conditional applications are ready to be archived, meaning we are completely done collecting applications for this cycle. And then review groups have completed their reviews on the general and conditional application levels. These won't be able to be reviewed in a formal capacity after they've been archived, but the data will still be available, meaning you can still force apply applicants if there is an award that needs to be made on a prior semester. We have an additional best practice recommendation to have all opportunities closed prior to cycle management. If we have a blank end date on an opportunity, that is effectively considered open in FS4U. One consideration when determining whether to leave an opportunity open across the 2 cycles is that an applicant's new application will override their previous application. That's going to mostly apply to auto match opportunities where a student's new general or conditional application would automatically override their existing application if it once again matches to an opportunity. Right now, we just have a small handful of opportunities we've identified that don't currently have an end date or have an end date falls after cycle management, meaning they would span 2 cycles. We'll be following up with the respective opportunity administrators on those to determine whether that is going to work out for that particular opportunity the way they intend. So we will be sending out the cycle management workbooks, questionnaires, and if you are over a conditional application, you'll receive that as well. We're going to be providing instructions, sort of a best practice guide for you. If you haven't done cycle management and you're confused by the materials that we provide you, we'll send some instructions on what to look for. And of course, we will also have a couple of virtual office hour dates. And let's see, those are starting on, Marianne, help me out. I don't have the calendar pulled up, but we're trying to get we will get
The week of the 20th, I believe, Brady. I think you had a couple sessions the week of the 20th and one the following week. So
okay, perfect. So we've
yeah,
got a session on the Monday, the Tuesday, and the Friday. So if you have any questions, you need help filling out your cycle management workbook, questionnaire, conditional application, you can jump into those. Me and Stacy will be available during those virtual office hours for that.
And the only thing I'll add to that is, I know in the past, for some of you, this has been one of the things that you've conveyed to us is you get, this is a process we do once a year. And as with any process you do once a year, by the time you go to do it the next year, maybe you're not real clear on what to do, or you're confused about something. And so one of the things that we're doing this year is we're going to have some virtual office hour times, as Brady just said, so that you guys can jump in. They're going to be available during that hour time. You can just jump in as you get to working on your workbook. If you've got a real quick question, or you want to be able to share your screen with them and show them what you're looking at, and you need some advice, they're there to help you with that, so that hopefully it'll make things go a little bit smoother. Most of those office hour, virtual hour times are going to be scheduled that first week after the workbooks are sent out. And that's because obviously when we get into week 2 of when those things are due, we're starting to get them back, and our team is inundated with working on those workbooks and making sure everything looks good. So don't wait till the day before to open your workbook and then be scrambling for a virtual office hour, because you're probably not going to find them at that point. So open it up, take a look at it, so that you're available. And of course, the team's always there to reach, if you need to reach out to the help desk box outside of those hours because they don't work for you, then obviously they're available to assist you as well. But we are offering that this year, in addition to the instructions tab that Brady mentioned. The instructions tab's not just going to tell you how to fill it out, but it's also going to recommend certain things to you. If you've got this occurring, then leave this with this result. So hopefully that's going to help for some of you that maybe have not gone through this process before. The key, which Brady said, and I cannot emphasize enough, is that you need to make sure you do not have any open awards. Okay. Once we go through if you have an open award that you choose to archive that opportunity, okay, our team's going to be looking closely for those, because it happened the first year we had a handful or so of those. If you choose to archive an opportunity that you have an open award for, basically it kills that award in the cycle, and there's no way to continue it. So if you had initiated an award, your budget approver had approved an award, and we had approved it, and it was waiting on the student to approve it, or perhaps the student accepted it and hadn't done the post-acceptance yet, now guess what? The only way they can do it if you've archived it is to start all over, and you have to initiate the award and go through that whole process again. So we want to make sure that you guys are looking at that now before these workbooks come out, so that when you get to that point, we don't have any that fall in that situation. And again, Brady and Stacy have done a great job of trying to be proactive and look at that as well. But that's one of the things that we really rely on you guys for, because every day you could be issuing new awards. And so you could turn a workbook into us today that says archive this, and then tomorrow you initiate an award, that might not get caught. So just something to think about.
Thanks, Marianne. If in doubt, we say just don't try to archive the opportunity. You may have awards in process. We may be in a point where awards may need to be returned to the foundation. If, for instance, you initiated an award for fall, spring, come to find out the students graduated in the fall and the spring portion needs to be returned to the foundation, we want to leave that opportunity open in case it needs to be adjusted in FS4U. We don't want really any exceptions to that where the data doesn't match in FS4U what's actually occurred. So as mentioned, we're going to be sending out the workbooks, the questionnaires, and if applicable, conditional applications starting this week, shooting to get them all out by the 17th. That following week, we're going to open up 3 sessions for virtual office hours. We ask that all those materials be returned to us by October 4th. And anything outstanding we're going to be following up on that week. we'll be looking at available cash in our accounting system to see if somebody's requesting a bunch of things be cloned, and there's really no reason to have that in the system at the moment. We obviously don't want to open up applications to students where there is no cash available. It's a waste of time for them. It's a waste of time for the administrators. On October 11th, we will be closing down FS4U for the current cycle. That means we're going to be revoking access for opportunity administrators and budget approvers so that nothing new can be initiated while we're doing our final checks before Blackbaud gets to actually archive general and conditional applications for us. That same day, we'll submit our case to Blackbaud. We give them about a week and a half for them to schedule that. They have over 800 institutions. A lot of us are trying to get this done at this time of year. We found it that this time of year is what's worked best for us as a whole. Obviously, it's not going to work for every academic college unit. We'll work with you on that. And then we'll have about a week and a half period to make any updates to our system. We're going to be relying on the information that's returned to us, whether you want your opportunities archived, cloned. We do ask that you provide dates for those new opportunities that are going to be opened. Otherwise, we're going to look at just defaulting those to the prior year's dates with obviously the new years attached to that. And then worst case scenario, we're reopening FS4U on November 8th. We are going to be as aggressive as possible to get that open before that date. Let's see.
The only other thing I will add there is, I think Brady's gone over the information they're going to be looking for from you guys, but this is the one time of year that you can make changes to your conditional applications. So when the materials are sent to each of you to complete the workbook and complete the questionnaire, part of that is whether or not you want any conditional application changes to be made. Because if you've tried throughout the year, once students have applied, we typically do not make changes to those conditional applications, because if it has the potential to change the applicant pools within each scholarship, and or to make a student's application that they previously submitted with information now incomplete because it's been changed. So this is the time, if you guys want to make changes to those are the updates Brady's talking about when he says we have a week and a half. It's to make any changes to general applications, conditional applications, as well as any individual apply to applications that you might want to make changes to. This is the time of year to do it. There have been no changes made to the general application that we're anticipating this year, so you don't have to worry about that. It really would just be any that you want to make specific to your college as it relates to your college application or your individual scholarship applications.
We'll try to be mindful of those conditional applications. We're going to read through them all. If anything gets missed, such as, you know, we have a reference to fall 2021 where it needs to be updated to read fall 2022. If we can think of a better way to do that and leave that vague enough that we don't have to update the award period every time, we'll do that. But like Marianne said, those are the opportunities to do that. We have up until the point that that conditional application opens to make that change. But we will prioritize getting all of those made as soon as possible. Additionally, for the opportunities, we're going to lock down the cycle management workbooks to where you're only able to indicate whether you want to archive, clone, and then provide the dates. So any additional things, for instance, you want to change an auto match to an apply to and add some questions to it, you can send us a separate Excel workbook. You can send it in a Word doc. You can just email a bulleted list to us. We're going to log all of those into a master change log file, and we'll go through all of those as we do our updates. We don't really care how we receive it. Just get it to us any way you can. And then for the awards that are still out there pending, we're going to be following up on those as we enter cycle management. We, of course, rolled out the FS4U pending scholarships report on our web report page. That's at reports.foundation.fsu.edu. It's under the campus user scholarship page. And that'll help you see where any of your outstanding awards are anywhere in the process. That means they have not been uploaded to FSU. So if anybody has questions about that, you can feel free to shoot it to the inbox, fs4u@foundation.fsu.edu. We can provide the link. If you don't have access to web reports, we'll help you get that. We'll share the link to request that.
And I'll just add to that, just to, for those of you who may have access to the financial reports, this is a separate folder. There's a financial report folder, and then there's also a scholarship folder. And Brady noted it was in the scholarship folder. So if you're out there and you're not seeing it, it may be that you don't have access to the appropriate folder, which is something we need to take care of here. There are 3 or 4 different FS4U reports that we have out there right now. So there's one that shows you all the funds that you have listed in FS4U. There's one that shows you all the process scholarships. And this is a new one that we created, which I really am excited about. A lot of you were struggling to stay on top of open awards because you didn't know if it was on the scholarship side or the donor stewardship side, because once they accept the award, it kicks it into post-acceptance, which is a different, so you'd have to go to 2 different grids to find the information. This one report pulls everything out. So it doesn't matter what side of the system it's on. If it's not been made it all the way through the workflow and it has not been sent to FSU to award, it's going to show you where it's at, and it's going to show you what category it's sitting in. So it's really easy for you to determine whether or not, and I don't know, Brady, if you have the ability and want to like just run a quick report to kind of show them. It shows you what each of the various categories means. It shows you, you know, what you've got sitting out there. And this is just an example of the report. You can see at the top, it shows you what all the various categories are. So for this particular one, where you can see the application category on that first line says budget pending, you can go up there and see budget pending. It tells you what that means and why that scholarship is sitting where it's at. So it kind of gives you an idea who you need to go to find out why is the scholarship sitting here. A lot of times it's sitting because of the students. We know that, right? As Charlotte said earlier, students don't always check their emails because they get a lot of emails. And so we know that. But this is going to help you as administrators ensure that they're getting moved along. If a student is contacting you saying, how come I haven't gotten my money? You can go out and run this report. And a lot of times you're probably going to say, well, according to this, you haven't completed the post-acceptance application, and you can direct them and tell them what they need to do. So again, we're really excited about this report. It pulls all the data from both sides of the system in so that you're looking at one place to go, one report. Keep in mind, like all of our other online web reports, it's only as good as of the prior business day. So if something happens today, that's not going to be reflected until tomorrow's report. But having said that, I think it's still going to make it more easier for you guys than trying to go into 2 sides of the system and figure out where things are, because I know that can be confusing and has been a frustration for several of you. So there are multiple parameters you can run the report by. I think you're going to find that this is going to solve those issues. And our hope is that it's going to help not only us, but the donor stewardship team so that we can get these awards through the system as quickly as possible so that students can get the money as soon as they can.
There were a couple more dates I wanted to mention as we come up on those. Of course, we've got the student data file is going to transition. We estimate around October 1st to start looking at the spring 2022 enrollment data. That'll stay active until, I believe, around the 1st of March. Additionally, our deadline to get awards over to the Office of Financial Aid or Student Business Services for the spring 2022 early disbursement period is Tuesday, November 23rd. And that's just right before the Thanksgiving holiday. And then we will open up the floor for Q&A. Unless, Marianne, did you have anything else to add to those dates? Okay, so let me stop the screen share. And then we are going to allow you all to unmute yourself if you have any questions for us. And then if you prefer, you can post it in the chat instead. Oh, of course. So I got a question. Somebody asked if we can go over the post-acceptance categories and what they mean. So let me actually bring that back up. Okay, so our post-acceptance categories, up until the point that a student has actually accepted the award, you're going to see this post-acceptance category that says in process. That means there isn't actually a post-acceptance application that's been generated because the student hasn't fulfilled their first part of the workflow. Once they do accept it, that is going to change to requested. So that means that they've accepted the offer, they get an automatically generated email from the system that says, now it's time to do post-acceptance. It sends them a link to access that. So it'll stay requested until they've actually accessed the post-acceptance application and saved it in some state. If they don't answer anything even, but they click save, it's going to change it to drafted. And until they submit it, it's going to remain in drafted status. I noticed we didn't put submitted on this list, but that one's pretty self-explanatory. Once it's submitted, it goes to our donor stewardship team for review. They're checking that the student has satisfied their post-acceptance requirements. They haven't just written, thank you for this money. If they write something that isn't sufficient for that thank you note, donor stewardship will change it to stewardship pending. That means they're starting to work with the student to revise their post-acceptance application, because obviously we don't want to cancel an award because a student didn't complete that. We have resources for students on how to write thank you notes and everything. Once they have completed that, if it doesn't have to go to stewardship pending, it'll go to awarded. That means it's picked up from our disbursement supervisor. She's putting together a transmittal file that's going to ultimately go to Office of Financial Aid or Student Business Services. And it'll change to pending payroll review. That's where payroll services is determining the student's residency status and whether the award needs to be dispersed by which department. And then once it's changed to uploaded to FSU or uploaded to FSU adjusted, it will not appear on this report anymore. It'll move over to the FS4U process scholarships report. And that's the one that you can use to reconcile your books. I'm going to stop that screen share.
So Brady, I'm just going to add in there real quick too, that Donor Relations also sends out reminder emails to students once they've hit about 2 weeks and they haven't completed it and they're in either the requested or the drafted state. And we will continue sending out a weekly reminder until the student finishes their post-acceptance and it's in submitted, just as an FYI again.
So there's a pretty rigid structure to that. Students are always going to be made aware. Obviously, if they're not reading their emails, that's a problem. That's part of why we brought in ITS to talk about the possibility of texting communications. Yep. Obviously, those students are glued to their phones. That may be the that may be the best.
Exactly.
So I see a question, and we get this question a lot in the chat, and they're asking if something could be put in place for the budget managers notified when there are scholarships pending for approval. And I wish I could tell you yes. This is one of our requests of Blackbaud. Unfortunately, the way we had to set the system up for our purposes, so to make sure that there was sufficient cash and the budget manager approved the expense in advance of us offering the student the award, we had to create a custom role for budget managers. That's why they don't get the automatic notification. It's because it's a custom role created within the system. This is a frustration of mine because I feel like it should be an easy fix to make all roles be able to receive whatever communication you want them to. But the only thing I can say is thus far, I can only gather we are probably one of very few institutions out of the 800 they have that are using custom roles and or need their people to get automatic notifications. So it has not been something that they have addressed. It is on our wish list. We continue to push it with them each year. We will continue to push it, but it's not anything we're doing or not doing as to why they aren't. Unfortunately, it's a custom role that we have to have in our workflow. And for that reason, that's why they're not getting those automatic notifications. So we will keep you apprised if that changes, certainly, because we know that's been an ongoing concern. What I will tell you is while they don't get automatic notifications, they do have the ability to set up a dashboard card, and Brady is more than happy to walk anyone through that might need to have assistance with that. You have 8 dashboard cards you can set up. And so if they just want to make it a habit to go in once a week and look and refresh that dashboard card, it will show them if they've got any scholarships that are pending their review. Sometimes that's easier if you've got a lot of scholarships than trying to go in and scroll down to the very bottom of the dashboard page to see what's there. So if that's something that you're interested in, or your budget managers might be interested in, have them reach out to the help desk box, and one of our team members can assist with that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Mary Ann. That's a good recommendation. If the budget approver, they're not getting the notifications, if they are logging in once a week, we can obviously put in a dashboard card for them. What it functions is like a metric. So we can put it there so that it says, whatever we want it to say, but we can say 10 scholarships pending your approval. And if they click onto that, it takes them straight into the grid that they need to budget approve those awards to move them to the foundation level. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for Blackbaud to hopefully implement that feature set, we do need opportunity administrators to communicate to their budget approvers in some fashion, or set that precedence that we should check every couple of weeks.
So I see a question here. Joanna White says, I'm new to alumni and managing FS4U. So the reports have been automatically added to my access. There's an additional form for me to fill out. Yeah, you're going to need to request access. Anytime you are new to an academic college or a campus unit, the vice president or dean over that college has to grant authority for you to have access to the report. So if you go out to the foundation's website, you go under forms and resources, there's an FS4U or a scholarship section there. And there's a form there that, as well as the FS4U project site, there's a form there as well that can grant you as a new user access, and the dean can sign where they need to fill out. And then you just send it to the help desk box, and Brady or Stacy will help work with you to get you set up for what you need access to. Sometimes that access is at just one fund. Sometimes it's an entire department. Sometimes it's an entire college. So it just depends on what, and then we have some, I think, where it's even by the Omni department ID. So it just depends on how you need your access structured. So just fill that form out, or reach out to the help desk box if you're not sure where to go for that form, and they can help you out.
We have gotten some questions, not today, but in the past couple of weeks, people asking, who is my budget approver? Who can be a budget approver? Can it be me? Can I do both functions? And I do want to mention that we have to keep those separate. Those that are qualified to be the budget approvers in our systems, they're certified through the budget office, and they're one of the DDDHC budget manager or authorized signer. Anyone, I mean, if you need to have those updated, you first have to go through the budget office, fill out their update to existing department ID form before we can add somebody's credentials as a budget approver in FS4U. We can, of course, tell you who your budget approver is if you just reach out to us and you're not sure who it is.
Yeah, and think of that, when you guys think of that, think of it in terms of, it's an internal control thing for us. So obviously think of it like if you were trying to initiate payment for yourself. Well, obviously you can't initiate a payment and authorize the approval of that payment for yourself, right? There's got to be a control in place there that prevents that from happening. So, the intent of the administrator is to initiate the award, and then the budget manager's role is to approve the expense. So it's an added layer of control, as well as ensure that there are sufficient funds to make that award. So that's really the purpose. It's no different than you running an EPRF through the university system or an HR appointment. There's separate levels of control. The same person doesn't do both. It's the same type of concept here.
Other questions? We've got about 10 minutes. I'm starting to see the participants go down. And again, if any of your colleagues could not be in attendance today, we will make the recording available online. We will send out a listserv announcement once that has been added to our project site.
All right, Brady, I think we're good to go.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Look out for your cycle management materials in the next week or so. And we're happy to help you work through that.